You are planning on traveling somewhere really cold. Awesome. Definitely do it, but there is cold and then there is cold. And I know what people say, don't worry about the cold that much. It's not so cold, it's a different kind of cold. It's not, it's cold, it's very cold. Recently I went on a trip to Lapland and it was absolutely freezing, and while I did try to do my best to prepare, there were some things that I couldn't really prepare for. So today I'm going to share 20 practical tips when it comes to photography in the very cold that may just save your back part if you make it back home alive. Just joking, of course you'll make it back home alive. So let's start off with a topic that seems very obvious, but it's simply the topic of staying warm. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, but Phil, it's just a matter of wearing layers, right? Not quite. Now, of course, you'll have your sexy thermal underwear, your sexy oversized ski pants. You'll have whatever windbreaker. And of course, you're gonna have a winter jacket, a hat and a scarf. And while that's all good, your absolute weak point in temperatures like those will be your hands and your feet. So let's start at the hands. If you're wearing thick gloves, you won't be able to feel the controls of your camera, which can be quite annoying over the day. And if you're thinking, well Phil, I'll just take them off, take my picture and put them back on, no you won't. It'll take no more than 1 minute before your hands are completely freezing in those temperatures. Now do note, I am not selling anything, I have no affiliate links, this is just my personal experience and recommendation, so you don't freeze. So for the hands, I recommend any kind of brand of photography glove. Why? Because these gloves have a thin inner glove that is then being plugged into a thicker outer glove. But that's not even the cool part, because if you're in the field and you want to feel your camera so you can actually feel your buttons, you can simply open the glove, put out your fingers, do your adjustments, and once you're done, close it back up so your hands are warm. Can be any kind of brand, but I really recommend those, otherwise your hands will be freezing. Because if these kind of gloves keep your hands warm, you need something for the feet. And of course, you're gonna get some random boots. But I do suggest to get them a little larger than you would originally need them, because you're not just gonna wear thick socks, but you will also want to put in some heating pads. Especially for the shoes, they come in very large sizes and you can just put them at the bottom of your feet and feel amazing for about 6 to 8 hours. The people that didn't use the heating pads regularly coined the phrase, "I can't feel my toes." Don't be that guy or gal. Now this particularly one here is a smaller heating pad. You just take it out of the package, they get warm within a couple of minutes, and they bring me back to the photography glove, because they have a little zipper just on top basically, where you can just take it out of the packaging and slide it in there so your hands are constantly nice and warm. The next thing is for absolute temperature emergencies. It's a heating vest. You can pick up different versions of these kind of vests on Amazon, and the amazing thing is they come with a power bank. The power bank then plugs into the vest and it's gonna heat your back, your front, as well as if you put the hoodie on, your ears. These things can literally save your back part. If you're standing out in the cold for quite a while, you feel frozen to the bone. So you can reheat yourself from the core outward. Moving on to some more practical tips, we're gonna start with a little fact. You will learn to hate your tripod. The problem is that you will most likely either find a small river, a small stream, or just put your tripod in the snow. If you then touch the snow and the snow melts, or of course if you stick it into water, you're gonna get ice into these connection points right here. That means that your whole day is and if that happens early on in the day, your whole day will literally be screwed. So if you need to place your tripod in water or snow, at least try to only place this part of the leg, the extendable part at least, into the water, and then once you are done, take some sort of a random cloth and simply wipe it off. Once you did wipe it off, you're good, you're good. It did happen to us all multiple times on a trip that the tripod was simply unusable because you couldn't extend the legs anymore. Don't do that to yourself. Moving on to these little buggers here, batteries. Batteries in the cold have the really annoying problem that they discharge much faster. Therefore, don't put the battery in your backpack because it's going to be very cold and it's going to discharge faster. Instead, put them in the inner pocket of your jacket or somewhere else close to your body so your body heat can keep them warm. The same thing also counts for drone batteries. If you have a drone battery and it's too cold, the drone will complain that the battery is too cold and will simply refuse to lift off. So get those batteries close to you and hug them as if it would be your last day. Moving on, but staying with batteries. If you buy more batteries, which you totally should, nobody should just have one battery, make sure you get good quality ones. Yes! So here's what I did, right? I have 2 of the Sony batteries that basically come with the camera. They are good quality, they served me well, and they didn't even discharge that much in the cold. So one of those babies maybe got me 8 hours of shooting. This one right here is cheap crap. I was changing batteries while I was hunting for the Northern Lights, and I used this one. And yes, it was minus 35 degrees, but still that's no reason for this to only last 1 hour. In normal temperatures, these things do well, but if you do go that far and that cold, I do suggest to get some higher quality batteries just for your own sanity so that you are not constantly living in fear. The next one is also a very practical tip. Sometimes you just so happen to get some dirt on your lens. And if it's not dirt, maybe it's snow. What do we all like to do if that happens? That's right, we just blow off whatever annoys us on our lens. If you do that in these temperatures, here's what'll happen. The moisture in your breath will instantly freeze onto the glass. So instead of having a piece of dust or snow or anything like that on your lens, you're gonna have a layer of ice. The first 5 times that happened to me, I was like, what? Because then you spend about 5 minutes trying to scratch off that ice with whatever piece of fabric you have on you. The same counts for your viewfinder or your LCD display, whatever you have. Do not blow on things, please. Now, talking about blowing on things, I can imagine that you probably get something like this. At least if you like your nose, that is. The problem is now if I put my camera, let's say, on the tripod and I look through the viewfinder, my breath doesn't go straight out, my breath goes upwards towards my eyes. The first issue that comes with that is that these things will freeze to your eyes, but there's not much you can do about it. But the second problem is that if your breath goes upward, it's still wet breath, and therefore you'll instantly have a layer of very thin ice on your viewfinder and your display. So just make sure you take these things off before you get very close to your camera. The next one is also a more general one that could apply to any travel. But as photographers, we like to stay out for a long time over the day. You grab a couple of sandwiches, you take a huge bottle of water, and off you go into the Netherlands until you're satisfied. Don't even try. Don't even try! If you take a big bottle of water, it'll freeze within an hour, also in your car. Instead, take like a thermos can or anything that's at least a bit smaller that you can put in the inner pocket of your jacket to use your body heat to keep it warm. The same counts for food. Do not use food that is very wet. Yogurt, cream, cheese, anything that can freeze will freeze. So get yourself a small bottle of water, put it in your inner pocket, and maybe some crackers. I don't know, something that's not wet that works for you. Now, obviously, you're going to use the energy from the food that you have to get around. And to get around, you will need snowshoes. And that is especially true for photographers, because we need to get off the beaten path. As long as you stay on the path, it has been kind of hardened by the footsteps of the people before you. But if you want to get to the undisturbed snow, to the beautiful sceneries that can open themselves up if you just step off the path, you'll need snowshoes, because otherwise you will sink in up to your hip. Depending on where you are, of course. You will still sink in with snowshoes, but way less. Now here is a more compositional tip. If you're out and about, you manage to get off the beaten path, then make sure you get low to get a great angle of all these shapes that are created by the snow. You can find awesome leading lines, holes made by nature, weird kind of light plays, especially if there's a sunset or a sunrise. So don't just arrive at a scene, take your picture and then go away. Go low, see what you can find that draws the viewer back into the image. And that is something that I also had to learn because for me snow was snow. So get low. Now, but the problem is also if you are walking around, you probably have to hold your camera somehow. This tip seems very basic, but I mean it out of experience. Try to touch your tripod, your lenses and your camera as little as possible without the thick gloves if you're going for that version. Cause your tripod or parts of your camera or things like your lens might be made out of metal or at least material that gets very, very, very cold. To the point that if you touch it with your bare hands, you might get that feeling that people describe as when they lick a frozen pole with their tongue. Which I always wondered, why would you do that? But you'll get the idea. You'll lose the heat in your hands much faster if you keep touching this cold stuff without a proper protective layer. And in that same sense, if you don't want to carry your camera around all the time, because then your hands will get cold, get one of those camera clips for your backpack. You can simply clip the camera into the thing and you don't have to carry it. The weight is on your shoulders and gives you more freedom to balance as you are trying to make it through the snow. I personally recommend Peak Design. So let's say you made your little trip, you take your pictures, you're happy to go back to the car. Don't trust the car. For some weird reason, in my head, as I did the trip recently, I thought I can just leave, I don't know, water in the car, and then I'm gonna heat up in the car in between photo spots, right? I don't know exactly why I had that misconception, but don't trust the car, because if it's minus 35 outside, it'll be just as cold inside when you come back from a photo spot. And no, the car will not heat up within 10 seconds. In other words, if you don't spend a 2-hour trip in the car, you will not really heat up, everything you leave in the car will also freeze, and in our particular case, 1 hour wasn't even enough to melt the ice on our snowshoes in the boot. So what I'm trying to say with that is just don't trust the car, you know, don't leave the water there, the food there, or hope that you're magically going to be warm the second you step in. In fact, in our case, it was so cold that the connection from the boot kind of broke, or it was just frozen, so that the car thought the boot was open at all times, which gave us this lovely beat to drive to. Beep, 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 beep. Nothing we could do. Anyway, you made it back to the car, you drive wherever you want to drive, and at some point it's going to be evening. If you are at a place that cold, you will probably hunt for the northern lights. So here's what most people do. They arrive at a northern lights spot because they might happen spontaneously. They take their camera and they take a picture of the northern lights. Nothing wrong with that, but if you want to elevate that a little bit, look for a foreground. The sky might look amazing, but if the foreground looks like crap, you're gonna have a crap picture. So wherever you are, if you have time to scout the place, go and scout the place. Find a spot that you would use if the aurora would show up any time of night. Or if it happens spontaneously, use a headlamp and try to find some sort of foreground. You can use framing like I did here, basically, to create, you know, a nice frame around the aurora. Or you can simply find an interesting shape in the snow, like a hole like Max Tervent here. Anything goes, but just try to be mindful as you're trying to take pictures of the aurora. Which is actually a good point, because how do you know if it's happening? With these kind of temperatures, you can't just stay outside all the time, you're probably gonna be inside. An easy way that might be possible, use YouTube. Places that have the northern lights appear commonly often have webcams set out over different places that just point towards the sky. So you can just go into the live stream and check. Is the aurora there? Is it currently somewhere around my vicinity? Based on that, you can make a judgment call whether or not you want to head out. You can also Google what is called the KP index, which gives you an indication how strong the probability is that the northern lights might join you tonight. At least it's better than wandering aimlessly through the night and waiting until it comes. It's too cold for that. Another super important thing is if you're in a group and you are finding a spot to photograph the northern lights because they just so happen to appear. Cover the little focus light on your camera. You'll probably have the camera on some sort of timer just to reduce the shake, and that particular focus light will illuminate the ground in front of your camera with red. And if anybody else is standing next to you trying to take a picture, that red will be in their picture. Just cover it. I covered it with 2 plasters and an ibuprofen packaging, because that's all I had that didn't let the light through. Next up, here's something more general again, and I kind of played on that earlier. Look for compositions, especially with holes. If you have all these snow-covered trees, they create beautiful little arches that you can photograph through. If you use that, in addition to getting low on the ground, you can find some amazing compositions, but you have to get used to looking for those holes or arches that are being created by the landscape itself. Try it out, you will not regret it. The second last one is a more practical one when it comes to safety. Do not walk alone. You might get stuck, you might fall on your back, you might not be able to get back up by yourself, you might just be a turtle on its back. You might walk on a lake, you might walk at the edge of a lake. That ice at the edge of a lake might break and you might be knee-deep in the water. You might be attacked by wolves. Anyway, after our first night, it was very clear that we do not want to walk by ourselves. At least be in screaming distance in case you do sink into the snow or you lose a snowshoe because it wasn't attached properly or anything like that. It's good to have somebody you can call, either on the phone or verbally, to make sure you're not alone, especially at night when you're looking for the northern lights. Just don't get stuck, step viewer. And the very, very last tip for today is try to enjoy the scenery. Throw a snowball, make a snow angel, listen to the incredible silence of that nature. And then get out there and get those amazing shots that you deserve. Because now you know what to do for photography when it's really, really cold. Enjoy your trip. If you go, send over some pictures on Instagram or anywhere where you like. I'd love to have a look what comes out of your camera. Stay safe and have a good one.